Yo quiero sentir profundo amor y compasión. So I wanted to feel deep love and compassion. I got to see and feel how they felt with this young, arrogant, selfish, sometimes incredibly rude and inconsiderate young man. And it was very profound.
Welcome back, everybody. We are a week in now. I'm sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I was wondering if we were live.
Oh yeah, we're live. We're ready to go. We're by the time you're watching this is our second week into the new year, and we've really had, in my opinion, we've had some really strong content towards the end of the year. And if you haven't seen it, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing, because we're really putting out what I feel is a really good mix of content that is helpful, that is inspiring, that will likely key in with some of you, maybe not all of you, and that's perfectly fine, but certainly some of you, and I think that's going to be very powerful. And today is one of those conversations because it pulls us away a little bit from the practical, although we'll probably weave in there, Alex and I were talking before we hit record, kind of how we would naturally weave in some of the practical elements of staying a relevant agent. But brother, first of all, good morning. And second of all, tell me about your trip.
Oh yeah, trip to Peru. So my second trip to Peru. So I was introduced to medicine, I guess, I would just get right into it, called ayahuasca. And if anybody has never heard of it, it's basically a vine and a plant that are basically boiled together for 28 hours. And it's a very ancient medicine, which goes back to, nobody really knows where, back to even the Mayas, or before post-Incas or pre-Incas, Mayas, like way back. And, when I was first introduced even to the concept, so somebody out there might hear this right now and not like jump on it, but it might start coming across your algorithm, or you might start hearing somebody talk about it. This is what happened for me about 6 years ago. I was with a friend on the beach watching the sunrise, and he mentioned it. And I was like, and he said, oh, it's this thing, and it like takes you to other places and reveals things and so forth. And I was like, and he's like, it's medicine. And I was like, well, what is it? And he's like, it's this thing, it's got DMT in it, and DMT is naturally occurring in your body, actually. So this is not some foreign substance. You're actually introducing just more of something that's already in you. It's produced in our bones and our lungs. And some people call it the God molecule. So, but anyways, all of that aside, I was like, dude, it's a drug. Like, dude, I don't care what you
that would have been my
call it
medicine. I know.
Yeah. It was mine, 100%. I was like, you can call it medicine, whatever. People call mushrooms or these other things medicine. It's like, it's a drug. However, drugs can be medicine. If I started thinking about that, right? Penicillin or any of the, ibuprofen is a drug, but it heals you, right? So anyhow, that notion got planted about 6 years ago. And then I dismissed it in a way, or wasn't attracted to it, or some people say calls you. And it just kind of came back into my life a couple of years ago through some very good friends that I trusted that were in the kind of personal development, metaphysical realm. There was a school that I went to called the Mystery School, Transformational Studies Institute. And inner child work and breath work, and very non-psychotropic or anything like that. So I've kept in touch with those people, and the lessons that I learned, with breath work and inner child work and auras and chakras and all that kind of stuff, was very, to me, it wasn't, some people might call that stuff hocus pocus or hippy dippy or something like that. And it just isn't to me. It's made the difference in my life. So anyways, it got reintroduced to me, and through actually a guy. So they introduced me to this guy, and his name is Alex, funny enough. And he reminds me a lot of me in some ways, but he has a really interesting story. I might even have him on the podcast someday. Um, he was in Kandahar in Afghanistan. He was airborne. He was in the shit. He was in the bad stuff, the really bad stuff. Saw a lot of guys die. Sebastian Junger wrote Restrepo. He knew guys in Restrepo, that unit. Anyhow, he was a fighter, like a fighter. Like still has scars on his hand, kind of thing, from punching people, and had almost a ruined marriage. Was into drugs and some pretty wild shit, and he was introduced to ayahuasca, and he was in a really bad place, and it changed him significantly. Changed his marriage. Says he would have never had his second child, might not even be alive from his path that he was on, and it kind of shook him up and diverged him to another path. And so, we talked about this before, Eddie, like relevance, right? Like we're trying to portray, or we're trying to project or tell, our experiences of what's helped us in real estate, right? Like it's also intertwined, right, dude? Like our lives, our business, our families, like it all kind of is very intertwined. It's not like they're not like mutually exclusive. So anyhow, I was introduced to the medicine and had some really, I did it here in the States. He's got a church that's, so he's exempt from, federal stuff. And it really had a massive, massive impact on me. And I made some business decisions that I was struggling with when I went into, they call it a journey. And, I also made some decisions personally, and it really, like, people that have known me for a long time, like 20 years kind of thing, are like, you're a different person in a good way. People that love me, but also like, you're kind of a dick, way back. And then you became kind of less of a dick in some ways after I broke, my girlfriend and I at the time was a very like, kind of divergent event.
Can I tell you that was the vibe around you when I first came to town?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you've known me for a long time.
Can I tell you, I didn't cast judgment. And obviously, fast forward, we're here. So it's not like I went through a journey where I was like, oh yeah, Alex is a dick and now he's not, and now he's my buddy. No, that was the vibe. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. And then you and I, of course, gradually had more and more interactions and conversations. But anyway, yeah, it's funny you say that because that was the vibe. Like,
I love that, man. There's a testimonial right there.
Testimonial. You were a dick. Yeah, I don't remember who
or you were perceived as a dick.
Exactly.
Right? And I love that you didn't cast judgment. It's such a beautiful thing, man. Like that you. Thank you.
No, yeah, of course,
brother. Of course.
But anyway,
well, hey, man, it takes a big person to make their own. Kind of like their own thoughts on somebody. Like, let me meet this person. Let me, hey, maybe there's some dickish sides to them. Maybe there's some cool sides to
exactly
them.
The thought process I went through. And it's usually the thought process I go through with anybody's. But I'll be frank. I'll be honest. Whenever I hear something like that, I'm curious. I'm immediately curious as to why would somebody say that? Why would someone intentionally be labeled that? Are they truly are? I mean, certainly there are people walking around the plants that really are, but more importantly, I think I'm interested in what kind of journey were they on that they're like that? I'm interested in that person, and maybe may not go further than 5-minute conversation or interaction, but yeah. So anyway, I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad I do know that quality because here we are.
Yeah, and people hold on to ideas. And they want to be right, and they take a position, and that's fine, whatever. So anyways, thank you very much for that. And that's such a wonderful thing, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyways, so after I had this like one journey, this one like really profound journey where I had a couple of decisions that I made, one that I was actually struggling with. So I knew I had this thing that I was trying to figure out. It had to do with a business relationship that I was in. And I was like, something's just not right. And I just can't wrap my head around it. And Yeah, I didn't want to leave because I believe in loyalty and I believe in sticking things out. And, uh, so anyways, I don't want to get into kind of the depths of that, but and I made this decision and it was like so concrete, man. Like, I don't know if you've ever had like one of those, maybe it was like when you met your wife or something like that. It was just like, bam, like it was just so profound, right? Yeah, it's completely absolute, right? I like made this decision. I saw myself, what I was going to do and everything. I had like all the pieces came together and it was just very, very clear. So then I made another decision that I didn't even know at all that I was actually looking. Okay, I'll give you what it was. I was really looking forward to going on this trip with some friends of mine that I've had for a long time. And maybe some people out there, we talk about the 5 people that you're around type thing, like that really makes you up. And if you just get stuck with those people and that's fine. You might have some great people. Or you might have some people that maybe you want to go and you have another goal to be someplace else. But if you're hanging with those same people, they're always going to be pulling you towards like their kind of whatever, even if they don't have a goal or they don't have a thing, or they don't have like, but you're kind of getting pulled away. That's those 5 people from the route that you maybe want to go. So it doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you don't care about them. It just means that maybe they're not the ones that you want to have in your life. As one of my dear friends told me, he puts people, or, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but he puts people in buckets. And so what he meant by that is like, hey, there's some people that are his drinking buddies. He doesn't drink anymore, by the way. And then there was like his finance buddies, and then there was his fitness buddies, right? Like, so these people were kind of like my party friends. Like everything that I pretty much did with them was partying. And I kind of started to diverge from that, but I still would go back. And I still love these people. I'm not like casting any judgment or anything. And we all went to Bimini, like back when I was drinking. So it was like 6 years ago or so. And we had a blast. I was like all these dear friends, and we're in Bimini for 3 days, and just hedonism, just craziness. And so when I kind of quit drinking, I still would hang around with them and that, but it was not the same, right? Because I was on a different path. So we were going to do a reunion to go to Bimini, and I was all excited about it. I was like, I haven't been with them in a while, and and I wasn't going to go back drinking or anything, but they're a good time. They're funny, they're smart, they're cool in that respect. And I was really excited about the trip, Eddie. And then I had this journey, and I was like, that's not the path, man. Like you're pulling yourself back into another path when you've already this is the way you want to go. And so I was like, I remember it, dude. I almost literally remember exactly kind of like where I was, what I felt. It was like, you're not going to Bimini. And it wasn't like sad. It wasn't regret. It wasn't anything. It was just clear, and I felt it. So fast forward a little bit. After that night, I started talking with Alex more about like his journey with ayahuasca. And he started talking about Peru. And I was like, that sounds cool in a way. And he's like, it's cool in a way. He's like, but it's hard, man. You think that an ayahuasca journey here is tough? Because it's very uncomfortable. Just so everybody knows, you might go out there and start Googling it or whatever. But like, it's tough. It's very uncomfortable. However, like a lot of things in life, you could just say like a workout. Like you have a really hard workout, but you feel great after. Right?
What's specific? Can you tell me a little bit? What's more specifically? What's uncomfortable about it for you?
Well, physically, when you drink this stuff, it's like drinking, it's like grass, like off of a lawn, had a baby with mud, and it's hard to describe, man. It's almost like take your medicine. You ever had like a castor oil or something like that? It's like take your medicine. That like is like, ugh. Like it's probably one of the worst things I've ever tasted in my life. Then when it gets inside of you, it is like, well, after about 20 or 30 minutes, it is like, what the hell is inside of me? Like, it is so uncomfortable. Like, you can't lay this way, and it's like lay this way because you want to
So
throw
it's
up.
messing with your gut pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah, and so then that resonates out the feeling. So this is one of the things that I've been working on over the last couple of years is actually feeling, because I've been much more of a head kind of person, of like solving problems. What's this? What's that? Puzzles together. Have been very much in my head and out of my body. We feel in our body, we think in our head. We don't feel feelings in our head. We think about stuff and then we feel it, right? We feel regret or we feel love. We feel love here. We feel regret and hate and bitterness here, right? Sadness, we feel it here. So literally here, bro, like I feel like ass. Like I don't, it's hard to describe. Maybe a really bad hangover in a way where you feel like you're going to throw up, but like times that by 10 in a way. No headaches or anything like that. So that, does that
Yeah, so
describe
you
it?
signed up
Like,
for this feeling. Go ahead.
what can I say? I'm a bit of a masochist. Um, but you know, I've read enough about it and I saw and heard enough people that it changed. So it's like, hey, if you haven't worked out, but you see other people and how great they feel, maybe it was somebody who didn't have a fitness or a health journey on their path, and then they get on that and they're like, I feel great. And it's like they change. So this is as a metaphor, right? So, anyways, I started talking to him more about it, and he's like, "It's hard, man." He's like, "The place where he went is different from the place we actually went, and the new place that we went was the first time he was going there. But the place that he had gone to was no talking for all the time you're there, no talking, no phone. Like they literally take your phone and put it in a safe. No books, right? All you can do is write and think and be with yourself." And that might sound attractive to some. It might sound, being away from your phone. I mean, there's studies of like, I know I have it. Like, if my phone's in the other room, I get a little anxiety. Like, just having my phone in the other room and not at my side, right? So that might resonate with you. So I was like, okay, like that definitely sounds hard. And he talked about fasting. Like, he had fasted for a week when he'd been there before, a week or 8 days or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, I fasted before, but never just water for like 7 days, 8 days. I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I want to go with you. So I went last year, man, and definitely I mentioned it off the pod here, one of the most, probably top five experiences, like literal like experiences. Like my mom dying in front of me when I was like 24, my dad died, and my grandfather died in front of me. Like, death is a very powerful thing. For me, it has been, at least. And this was very transformative, the experience of going there. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you want to talk about it more.
Yeah, I mean, was that? But you're describing. Are you describing this trip, or were you describing the last trip?
So a bit of both. So what I found was I went down there, and there was some talking. There was talking that was allowed. No phones. Like they let you have your phone, but I really made an effort, and a good effort. I mean, I looked at it a couple times. I used it to record some things, but I wasn't like surfing the internet. I wasn't texting people. I wasn't calling people. I disassociated myself from that. And even actually saw myself when I turned my phone on to do something, I would see the Facebook things come up or whatever, and I'd be like, "Ooh, no, no, don't do that," right? So, um, you know, we talked about this a little bit, dude, and I think we can bring it back a little bit to business. Like, one of my coaches, and I've had a few of them, real estate coaches, said, you will know where your business is at if you leave for a week. Like, you literally will have an idea where the holes are, what systems you need to put in place so that you can go away. So that was a pretty cool thing last year. There was a few things that broke down, which is good because you get to see what breaks, right? And then kind of go and adjust it. This last trip, man, I went for 8 days. no contact with any of my team, the staff, nothing. And I came back and everything was fine. And so that was a pretty cool thing. There was all the stuff I learned and all that, which if you want to get into, but then it was also like, wow, we talk about having a life that you don't have to take a vacation from. It's like, can you leave and go wherever? And it might be going to Greece or whatever, and is more of a recreational holiday rather than they're all kind of learning stuff when you travel to me. But yeah, man, that was a pretty cool thing to be able to leave for 8 days and not worry, especially after last year where I was like, okay, we fixed the things that kind of broke a little bit. And man, come back and it was like, everything's good.
Did you intentionally go with that thought in mind to have clarity as to, I mean, what were your top 2 or 3 things, if you don't mind sharing, a couple of things that you wanted to sort through in that quiet time, for lack of a better term?
I love that, man. That's such a great question. So you do have an intention. You set an intention before the whole thing. So you go, there's a shaman, you sit there, tell them your intentions, and believe if the universe is hearing
And that's
that.
part of
Ayahuasca.
part of the quote unquote requirements before you go, kind of thing. Have that in your head.
Yeah, I don't know if I would use the word requirement, but it's like a best practice. To what do I want to work on? Now the medicine might not show it to you in the way that you think, and that's part of like also what I was going there to work on is like, what are my blind spots? Like, what am I
That's
missing?
really great.
So back 10, 20 years ago, I told my blind spot was that I was a dick. Like, but I didn't get it. Like, people would tell me, if people ever told you stuff and you're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Right?
you might
There could
you
be
might
anything.
dismiss it right away. It's one person's opinion of you, and you may just dismiss it, or obviously you're not in a place where you can be like, oh, okay, thank you. And you internalize it maybe better and say, oh, maybe that's something I could work on. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and sometimes it might be like it might. It's like things get clear almost after things have happened. What I mean by that is like I got really clear about like, wow, all these people were saying this kind of same thing ish, some more extreme than others. Is like, what's the common thread? This guy, I'm the common thread. It's not them. That's the mirror, that's the feedback, but I'm not receiving the feedback, right? So that's a blind spot. That was something I was missing. And that could be in your business, could be in your personal relationships, be your family, right? We have these blind spots. So that was kind of last year. My intention going in was to um, deal with anxiety, right? I've been gnawing on my fingernails since I was a kid. That's a deep habit, man. It's a self-soothing thing and all that. We get into why that is, whatever. But I didn't like it, right? Because it was something that was just constantly going on. After I left Peru, I don't know if you can see it, but like I actually have fingernails. So since last year. Now I still, do a little stuff like this and that, and that's kind of I noticed that as the anxiety is creeping in, right? And I'm like, okay, what are you nervous about, or what are you anxious about? What are you worried about? What are you thinking about of the past or the future? Like, just be in the moment. So, I was able to stop gnawing on my fingernails, which was a long habit. And you could look up stuff with ayahuasca. There's literally people that have just been 30-year drinkers. What's his name? Ron White, who like, you know who Ron White is?
And I've heard the name.
He's a comedian. He's a
Oh, yes,
comedian, and
yes.
he like would
Hmm.
always be on stage with like a bourbon, and was just like a mad drinker. Like, and all of his comedy was a lot about drinking, and uh, he went and did ayahuasca, and he stopped drinking. Um, so that's like a pretty deep
Yeah,
habit.
the nail
Right?
biting is also has been on my list too. Ever since I was a kid, I've always done that. And then as I get older, yeah, as I got older, it's these kind of stress inducing lifestyles, maybe not for everybody, but I that's how I equate it or how I reconcile it. I was like, you're always thinking and worrying and stressing as you're building and building, and is that going to work? And I've gotten better as I've gotten older for sure. But now I have my own internal kind of barometer for it too. It's just like if I see them growing, I stop and I reflect as to kind of where I am and what I'm doing. And there's always the link towards some moment of peace it doesn't have to be one moment in time. Like right now, it's just a gap in time, a space in time where I've accomplished X or gotten over something, then they tend to grow back. And I always see it very clearly when I go out and away from work. And so like this time I was in Greece, I don't do it. And it's not, um, it's not intentional. Like, oh, I'm going to stop doing it. It's just, I must be in a place where and not necessarily the physical place, but I'm in a place where I'm calm, I'm more relaxed, and this stress must be much more minimal. And then I'm like, oh, look at that. And then I have to trim them. And that's really nice. So that's what it's been for me kind of where I am up here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
These commonalities. And you start to come, it's like, oh, is it just, because growing up, my mom swapped my hand. And I do it to my girls. And it's funny, as I say this right now, my younger daughter does it too. Probably even to a worse degree than I did. And she's my academic, my doing 10 things at a time where I have to keep an eye on her. Just like, hey, you don't have to overdo it. Just try to find your balance. It's like, it's not the end of the world if you don't get an A+ on this test. She's that kind of kid. And so, and she's a goal setter and a goal reacher. So I've got to kind of start to impart some of these thoughts that I'm having with you right now with her a little bit more intentionally.
no, she wants to come to Peru with me, or you too. Father-daughter thing. Um, yeah, I mean, anxiety is an interesting one, man. Um, and I think so much of like what it comes down to for this is it's soothing. It's self-soothing. And alcohol can be that, drugs can be that, sex, but all this stuff can be, yeah, food, right? Like watching Netflix, Facebook is a soother. Like I'm feeling a little bored, right? Like, okay, I want to soothe myself. Mommy, I'm bored. Watch TV. Here's a candy. Here's that. Like, right? So we pick up these things to self-soothe ourselves. So that's a whole nother subject.
Take
But I
a
think,
break from what you're thinking of, whatever your stress is, which is obviously a great play into kind of the lifestyle that a lot of successful real estate agents uh, live, because there's a lot of stressors and there's a lot of things you may have
yeah,
to try to cope with, whether they're healthy, considered healthy coping mechanisms or unhealthy. But yeah, we've kind of rattled off a few that are likely um, people can kind of understand and resonate with.
yeah. And let's stay on that real estate thing a little bit. Like as an example, if you're dealing, we've talked about this before as an example, and I literally have said to people so many times, like one of the bigger turning points in my career was when I got an assistant. I got coached by Dennis Gianetti. I learned about Pi Time. I was like, wow, I got to get somebody to take care of these things, putting things in MLS, answering calls, is the escrow there, that kind of stuff. Like we have so many things that have to happen in a real estate transaction. And if we're the main link, like everything's got to go through us, it's like, then get a transaction coordinator, right? But, oh no, I don't want to do that because it costs me money. So they just stay in, I'm doing this of like, oh no, I'm just going to keep doing this. It's like, well, what do you need to let go of? Maybe you let go of this idea that you need to do everything yourself. And once you let that go, then you can start to let other things go that are going to benefit you and your business, right? You're going to be able to spend more time with your kids. You're not looking at your phone because somebody's like, hey, is the escrow in, or is this, like, pulls you away from your family, pulls you away from these things that you may say are important, but you're not really executing on the things to honor the importance of what you said is important. Just as an example, right? So this particular time down there, I can't even remember what my overall intention was, but I can tell you that it had a lot to do what ended up coming up in the last journey, because all the journeys, some of the lessons come in from other journeys and they start to like connect. You're like, oh, I learned that there, this connects here. So it's like each journey kind of compounds in a way. So I wanted to feel, I've always, again, I have had a harder time connecting with my feelings, and I had a lot of anger, right? And I really identified with anger. Broke my hand twice, smashed my hand through a window, like, did a lot of stupid stuff physically, mentally, abusive verbally, not never physically to anyone else, at least myself more so. Um, so I wanted to feel, and what in the end, what I felt was this deep. You'll appreciate this in Spanish, buddy. So this is my last intention and my last one. Yo quiero sentir profundo amor y compasión. So I wanted to feel deep love and compassion. That's translated from Spanish. And in that last journey I did, man, I had this like profound love and appreciation and gratitude for all those people that I was such a dick to. And mostly my parents. And I got to see and feel how they felt with this young, arrogant, selfish, sometimes incredibly rude and inconsiderate young man. And it was very profound. It was very like, I got to see it. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about, of like, it shows you. Like this one showed me first time going down there where my business was at. It showed me a lot of other things while I was there. But this one showed me the people in my life that were there, even when I was a jerk. You came up, just like, and I appreciate you hearing, I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier, like we're willing to not take other people's word for it and be a little bit curious yourself. And so I have compassion and love for you for that. And even compassion for maybe some times where I didn't treat you as you deserve to be treated. So it's been impactful on my relationship with my daughter, with my relationship with my ex. Never got married, but like was just, I'm just so much more accepting of the triggers that used to she did that I thought she was intentionally doing, but it's just her way. And I'm like, I got to see that it's just like, that's just her way. And if you don't react, if I don't react, I don't feel like shit. And we have more fluidity in our relationship. And so my daughter's better off for that. I feel better. She feels better. In fact, Eddie, she doesn't do the thing. This is amazing. I don't know if it's just like coincidence, but she just doesn't do these things anymore. Or I don't see them and they don't bother me, right? I just put it in perspective of like, this person has raised this daughter with special needs. Like, shut the hell up about her being late, dude. Shut up about her asking for this or asking for that. You weren't there all of those late nights. You weren't there for all of those doctor visits. You didn't sacrifice like she did. So shut up and just say, sure, how else can I help? Sure, how else can I help? Yeah.
Well, sincerely, man, if I could reach through the camera, congratulations, and I'd give you a big hug, because two things really resonate with me is your ability to put yourself through that journey and say, listen, I want to improve. I want to change. These are things that are bothering me. However you want to define the catalyst for wanting to go on a journey such as this. And as a man, because that's a whole other thing too. And some of the content that I consume too is some of the challenges that I think that exists now. And this isn't man versus woman, adult versus child, or genders versus gender. None of that stuff. What I'm talking about is certainly as the world has evolved, I've noticed this change in kind of what it is to be a man in our world. And so I really stand up and applaud your ability to speak what is going on with you, what the current challenges are, where your wins are, where your losses have been, but more importantly, your willingness to share that story, because I really do believe there's not enough of these stories and not enough of this open, frank conversation, because we always end up finding some kind of common thread amongst ourselves. And I'm also talking about men as well, that is likely going to serve somebody else. And of course, as you know, we started this whole thing because we want to help. That's really our guiding light in whatever capacity it might be, whether it's professional or personally. So thank you as your friend. Thank you as your co-host here on the show for, going through that journey with us, because I value it. I respect it. I learn from it. And I also see, like I just mentioned, I see those common threads in what, I've gone through, what I'm going through, what I think about, what still concerns me. So it's just if it's just you and I in this room right now, it's a huge value add to me. So thank you.
Mm. Thanks for receiving that, man. Yeah. So I would implore anybody out there who is searching, who is receptive to what they're missing. Like if you're not really happy with where your life is, then you've got some blind spots. For me, I've had blind spots, and a lot of this stuff in the past was like pie time, dude. I didn't understand what leverage was. Like I didn't understand what that was. It was a blind spot, right? And the coach was able to show me. This is what we're trying to do here, of like show you from our experiences the things that have helped us in our businesses, in our lives, and so forth. But I implore anybody out there that if you're not really, I would use, I guess, the word satisfied with where your life is at, then you've got blind spots that you're not addressing. And it could be in your business, could be your family, could be relationship, whatever. And it all, again, is intertwined. So when you start to be open to getting uncomfortable about, like, wow, I'm kind of a dick, or I'm this, or my business is here and I would like it to be there. Like, I got to take a look at this and not just keep doing the same thing, being the same way. It keeps you stuck in that unsatisfied life. So I think that's what we're here to do, Eddie, is to impart our experiences, and this is one of them for me. So if anybody's interested in that kind of stuff, I'm going to actually be doing, I'm going to invite people, and I'll invite people right now. If you want to go to Peru, or you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can reach out to myself or Eddie, and happy to talk about it, and maybe talk to you about where your life is at, or where your business is at, or both, and how we can help you get to that life where you're like, I'm Eddie, I'm just so thrilled with where my life is at right now. I'm satisfied with where my life is at, financially, health-wise, spiritual-wise, relationship-wise. I'm in a great place. Now, do I have more work to do? Absolutely. Is it like hang it all up and I've got it, figured it out? No, I've got more to learn. I'm sure I've got more blind spots, and I want to continue to explore those.
And every success just gives you absolutely more momentum to accomplish more, and look to root out what are those other ones that I could possibly improve or expose or repair. And I think they just compound on each other. And at the end, hopefully, before we close our eyes for the last time, we're like, hey, I'm a good human. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. These are some of my favorite. And if you're all watching that really enjoy this kind of conversation, please consider subscribing, and let's take Alex up on his offer. Reach out to us if we can help you in a similar journey. And until next time, my friends. Thanks, Alex.
So until next time, buddy, you're welcome to come to Peru with me next year with your daughter.
That might be that's something that seriously we'll consider, and we'll have a conversation about that for sure.
Right on, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Take care.
See you.